According to the GSMA Mobile Economy Sub-Saharan 2022 report, 40% of the adult population in Sub-Saharan Africa is now connected to mobile internet services. However, the usage gap remains a challenge affecting digital inclusion. So how are players in the mobile industry space addressing this challenge? Brelotte Ba, the Deputy CEO, Middle East and Africa at Orange, spoke to us on this and more.
As Orange, we are very much committed in leading digital transformation in Africa because we've seen very recently with the COVID how people used technology, for instance, to have end-to-end COVID tests sent by email, to do cash transfers to people that could not move. So today, all the people, government stakeholders know about the impact of digital in transforming Africa. So the idea is very much about how we accelerate. And in Orange, we have basically two main parts. The first is connectivity, but connectivity is not everything. I'll come back to it. And the second is the multi-service approach. Connectivity, it's basically to make sure that we have the right infrastructure because it needs investment to make sure that the connected Africans, 342 million according to GSMA. In Africa, we have roughly 141 million customers in 18 markets, and among them we have crossed the 50 million customers using 4G. And we need to serve these customers, make sure that we have the right infrastructures. So it's about having spectrum, having the submarine cables, but not only that, having infrastructures in the countries. We have, for instance, in West Africa, Brelotte Ba connecting 8 countries, connecting 8 data centers to make sure that we have the bandwidth, we have the quality to serve these customers. And broadband is obviously at the heart of digital transformation because as we bring broadband, e-commerce is going, remote services being for house, for educations are available. So this has a main impact in the populations. And the second part, which is also very important, is tackling the usage gap, because in Africa we have more than 500 million customers that are covered, but they are not using they are not using the service. For us in Orange, the two keywords are partnering, having the right partners to, for instance, the one we have with Google, to have the Sansa, which is a very affordable device at less than $30 to make sure that customers can have it and use smartphones to do data. And the second is training. We have a very specific asset in Africa, which is the Orange Digital Center, launched 11 years ago, and so far we have trained 700,000 Africans freely to coding. And in this space, not only you have the coding school, but also we have an accelerator for startups to make sure that they can have access to 3D printing. They can leverage on our assets in terms of business developments. And we also have Orange Digital Orange Venture Capital to finance them. So all in one place, about giving people the right skills, coaching them, and then provide them with capital. And this works. For instance, in our booth we have a startup that started in 2020 the journey with Orange, and now they are developing use cases for 5G. So building the infrastructure, but at the same time partnering, addressing the skills issue to develop digital inclusion in Africa.
Right, quite a number of things you're doing there. And what are some of the opportunities you would say that you see in mobile financial services on the continent?
On the continent, in the 18 markets we are serving, we have 70 million customers. And we started this journey in 2008 with basic services, being wallet services, but it is very much impacting these populations, because you know that in Africa, cash represents still more than 90%, and in many countries, access to banking services is very low, less than 20% in Sub-Saharan Africa in general, maybe 60% in Maghreb. So we need to bring solutions that are affordable, widely available, and this is very much the offer that we have with Orange Money. It's services ranging from remittances, payments, and we have a very wide offline reach with 400,000 points of sales in very remote areas, so that people can access to these services, do very transactions of small amounts that they can have with the banks. And this is really very much a bank, and we've seen it during the COVID. Many citizens that were in lockdown period could receive money transfers from the government or from other NGOs on their mobile phones. So this is really very key to address some of the issues in Africa, be it financial inclusion or addressing some other issues. And the market is now evolving with digitalization, and we have more and more customers that use their smartphones, and it opened a new range of services from wallet services, remittances, banking. We have launched Orange Bank Africa in Ivory Coast, and it's also developing, extending its footprint. We have 1 million customers with Orange Bank Africa. So tomorrow, the mobile services will evolve from these basic services to a lifestyle journey using these mobile services to pay for transportations, educations, healthcare, etc.
Okay, and let's talk about another big conversation that's happening in the mobile industry space, and that is 5G. Tell us about your 5G rollout plans so far.
Okay, this year, 5G will be a reality with Orange, because we will launch it in Botswana before the end of this year. Commercial launch, and we are preparing 5G because it's very important to make sure that the networks are available, and spectrum, which also involves the governments, so that we can have very good commercial launches, and next year we'll have other launches as spectrum is available, and we have the right conversations with the authorities in the countries where we are.
What will this mean as we bring this conversation to an end? What will the rollout of 5G mean for the African continent?
Actually, 5G will not be only a technology for Africa. This is really very much about leveraging on 5G to address some key issues for the continent. We know that in Africa now we have big opportunities, be it for demography, but also challenges. Access to electricity is one of them. Access to healthcare, we have roughly 1 doctor for 1,000 inhabitants in Africa. So education is another one. 5G will be very much the network of industries, B2Bs. And in Orange, we have launched some 5G labs in some countries, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and Jordan. And the idea is to bring in one place startups, businesses, and have 5G, small 5G networks, and see with them what are the use cases that are relevant and how it can impact their business, how it can be relevant, because 5G should be used to address these issues. I give you an example. We have mining industries in Africa, and with 5G you can have use cases to have automated processes, and it improves efficiency, quality, and ultimately will fuel growth. So our approach is very much about having these 5G labs, having these right use cases to address the B2B issues. And the opportunity that we have is also to have these startups that will identify the problems that we have in healthcare, in transportations, in education, come with some services, and 5G will be able to let them run these businesses, because it will allow to have objects to run some businesses, be in robotics, in automations, etc. And this is really our big opportunity to leverage on this to improve competitiveness of our industries, and also build champions in terms of startups. This is really what is at stake for 5G in Africa.